Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming here tonight. My name is Bowie Hogg, a past president, current board member filling in for Dr. Reich. He was on a flight home today, and his flight got a little bit delayed, and he'll be here in a few minutes, but we decided to go ahead and get started without him. I'd like to convene into open session the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for Arlington Independent School District on May 16th, 2019 at 5:38 p.m. Thank you all for coming in. I think I know why you're all here, and I'm glad to see you all in here. First on our agenda is a swearing in of our school board trustees. And in our presence tonight is a great longtime friend of the Arlington ISD, put his kids through the Arlington ISD, is dedicated to this district, and serves our community as a judge, and I get mixed up in all the criminal courts of which one it is. But let me introduce our honorable judge and our friend of the district, Honorable Judge Carrie Walker.
All right, Mr. Wilbanks, I'd have you come up, please. Raise your right hand for me, sir. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I state your name,
David Wilbanks,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of
that I will faithfully execute the office of
the duties of trustee, place 4,
trustee, place 4,
Arlington Independent School District
Arlington Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve,
protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
And now we can officially say Trustee Wilbanks will have our other trustees sworn in, but then we'd love you to have a few words, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Wow, this is a big day. So it's been a long time coming. I want to thank my wife, who's put up with a lot of late nights over the last 8 years of where I've been away working on a various committee or so. I want to thank all of our friends. We have a group of families we vacation with known as the Fab Five. Several of those families are here tonight. So thank you, Fab Five, for supporting me too. And my other supporters. And I also want to thank my extended family, my sister-in-law, her husband and son who are here. But I look forward. I've got very big shoes to fill, but we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm ready to get going. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wilbanks. Sounds nice to say that now after all these years. David, you've been at our meetings so long, I feel like you've been a trustee for many years. So thank you for all your hard work to this district for so long, and thank you for being willing to step up and serve this community in another role and duty as trustee. Next, we'd like to have the swearing in of our colleague and re-elected trustee, Justin Chapa.
All right. If you raise your right hand for me, sir. And I'm going to say this first part, and you will repeat after I get finished with that. All right. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I state your name,
Justin Chapa,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of
trustee, place 5,
trustee, place 5,
Arlington Independent School District
Arlington Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability preserve,
and will to the best of my ability preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Good job.
Woo!
I don't have a whole lot to say. This is my third swearing in about 18 or 19 months, so I don't really have much new to say. I would like to recognize my friends and family who are here tonight. My wonderful wife, Anna, is here, and my kids, Benjamin and Audrey and Evelyn. Hi, baby. She keeps saying hi. Got my sister, Sarah, here, my friend, Brock Klein, my stepdad, Bob Beasley, my dad, Roel Chapa, my grandmother, Belia Chapa, my mother-in-law, Kathy Ingebretson, my aunt, Terry Chapa, who works for the district, and one of my lifelong friends, Eric Salas, is here as well tonight. We, as Mr. Wilbanks said, we have a lot of work to do. I look forward to working with David. We've been working together since we were on the 2011 Financial Futures Committee together, and so I look forward to working with him in this capacity as well, and look forward to the things that we're going to do for the benefit of students in this district. Thank you.
We did the switcheroo, could you tell? Thank you, Mr. Hogg, for covering for me. I just came in from the airport, so pardon my tardiness. I would like to sincerely congratulate both of you, Trustee Chapa, Trustee Wilbanks. Congratulations again. Judge Carrie Walker, you're still here. Thank you so very much for coming out. And everybody, thank you. This is a privilege for us to, after every election, to have the great honor to serve all of you in our community. And it's great to have our team set in place to do the work that you expect us to do in helping make Arlington ISD to continue making it the best district in the state of Texas, if not the nation. And thank you for being a part of that. We would love to sit here and talk about that, but we'll take just a brief break. And as nice and fun and exhilarating as this probably was for you two and the rest of us, we do have some work to do this evening. So at this point, we'll take a brief recess, and then we will move down the hall for our dinner work session. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to reconvene into open session this meeting of the Board of Trustees on May 16, 2019, beginning at 7:07 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. Really appreciate that. As is our custom, we will start our opening ceremony. Please join Mr. Chapa in leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if you would now also please silence cell phones and any electronic devices that you may have to avoid disruptions to those around you. So I need to do that too. And now, if you would please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. So before we came out here this evening, earlier this evening, we had the swearing in of a couple of individuals up here. We had the swearing in of our re-elected trustee, Mr. Justin Chapa. Congratulations, Justin. And our newly elected trustee, Mr. David Wilbanks. Congratulations. It's a pleasure to have you up here along our side serving with us, Mr. Wilbanks, and Mr. Chapa, for you to continue in your capacity, adding great value to this governing body. So very, very excited. So What happens after an election is kind of unique here in the boardroom. If you look on the agenda, the next item is the organization of the Board of Trustees, and it's the election of board officers. Every year, it's our policy at this meeting that when we seat trustees for new terms, we also have the election of officers. So it's a once-in-a-year opportunity that I hand this gavel over to our superintendent for the purpose of beginning our elections, seeing it wouldn't be appropriate for me to do that. So this is the only time it happens. And it doesn't last for very long, just to be clear.
Just to be very clear.
So I will hand this to you, Dr. Cavasso, so you can proceed.
So thank you, Dr. Reich. And at this time, do we have a motion and a second for the office of president?
Yes, Dr. Cavazos, I would like to make the motion for Mrs. Keisha Mays to be president of the board.
And I will second that motion.
Very good. Any other nominations? If not, we have a motion and a second. Would you please vote?
All right.
Congratulations, Ms. Mays, the new president.
And so with that, this is going to be a little different this evening. We're going to swap spaces, so Keisha's going to come here and proceed with the next portion of our election of officers. All right.
To you.
Thank you. And like that, let's continue with our meeting. Do we have a nomination for vice president and secretary?
Madam President, I would move that we appoint Bowie Hogg as vice president and Ms. Polly Walton as secretary.
And I second.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Bowie Hogg as vice president and Polly Walton as secretary. Are there any discussions? Okay, so we have a motion. Yes. So we have a motion by Justin Chapa, a second by David Wilbanks to name a Board of Trustee officers. Now vote. Congratulations, Bowie Hogg as VP and Polly Walton as secretary. Congratulations. So we will move our places after we come back from the reception of our new appointments. But before we do that, I would like to just take 1 second to say thank you, Dr. Reich, for leading this group. We appreciate your leadership. It's been an honor to serve. We will be doing a full recognition for you at our next board meeting on June 4th, but I just wanted to stop and just take the time to say thank you. Okay, we will now going to recognize our outgoing Student Leadership Advisory Board. If I could please have Ms. Jennifer Fuller, please come to the microphone.
Beth.
Beth Hollinger,
Yeah.
would you like to step up?
You may call me Jennifer.
Two awesome people.
So President Mays, I'm honored to say that to you first as a group, so congratulations to you, and board members and Dr. Cavazos. It is an honor and for me to celebrate tonight our outgoing Student Leadership Advisory Board students that are a part of this year's group. And as I introduce them in a minute, they're going to stand up, and I'd like for each one of you to come up to get a letter in reference to your work that you've done this year. Just to give a little bit of background about our Student Leadership Advisory Board members, they are our representatives from our high schools. They are our junior student body presidents. So they are not leaving our district yet. They are part of us still and going on to the next school year. However, we do have one of the members as the president of the SLAB, is the Student Leadership Advisory Board is commonly known as. And that is the one that will be leaving our group this year and moving on to go on to college, and she's going to share a little bit more information about the group as well. But a little bit of background about the group is that they are the voice for the campuses that they represent. And they are also making sure that they are the advocates for the students at the campuses as well. It's an honor of the board members as yourself that you wanted to make sure that those students were representing the work that we were doing at the district, across the district, and making sure that they're a part of the activities that we have going on, and being a part of some of the decisions. They don't vote, but they hopefully influence some of the decisions that we make moving forward. So at this time, I'm just going to share who our members are. They're going to come up and get those letters, and then I'm going to have our president come up and speak. So first we have Julia Almaraz from Arlington High School. We have Mia Palladini from Lamar. We have Molly Tinkle from Arlington High School. We have Jackie Charles from Seguin. We have Brad Flick from Sam Houston. And we have other members as well, but they were either had to leave early or they were not able to make it due to some other events going on. Very busy time of the year with testing and all the activities at the end of the year. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Julia Almaraz from Arlington High School, and she's going to share a little bit of information about what the work they've done this year.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Julia Almaraz. I'm from Arlington High School, and I've been in SLAB for the past 2 years. It's been an invaluable experience. I've learned so much, and just being able to contact you guys whenever and have that bond with the board committee, it's just benefit me so much, and I know it's benefit them as well. They've been able to have access to so many different committees, be a part of AISD in so many different ways, like the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, the Calendar Committee, school safety. They've participated in so many different ways, and I'm sure they're thankful. We wouldn't trade this experience for anything except maybe the junior high trips. I heard those were a little rough on them, but they powered through. They made it. So thank you so much for everything that you've given us.
I did just want to say one other thing. We have Mia Palladini, who is voted tonight as our president for next year, who will be a senior with our group for next year. Thank you.
Congratulations. And Beth, just 1 second before you go off. Thank you very much to our SLAB students. This was kind of a brainchild that was thought up between Aaron and Mr. Bowie Hogg when he was president. I would like for him to just share an experience from our very first lab to what we've come in to be today. And thank y'all very much for serving, and your input really is appreciated, and we hope y'all have an amazing summer. Bowie?
Thank you, President Mays, and good job working the digital. It's hard sometimes. And thank you to SLAB for serving. These are all junior class presidents, if y'all don't know. When we created this, we very specifically chose junior class presidents. We're elected officials. We wanted elected officials from each of the schools to represent also and have a voice. This board was very impacted by some students reaching out and realized we weren't reaching out to students enough in years past. And our board's always been able to recognize things we do well, but also importantly, recognize things we need more work on. And the SLAB creation was a creation from myself, Dr. Reich, and actually one of the students, a young lady named Rebecca Leppert at Bowie High School. And if anyone went to Bowie, you probably know Rebecca because she was larger than life, always really, truly one of those leaders. And I just commend these students, and I told them earlier, for all your work and all your input, We now keep up with Rebecca and so many of our SLAB students. And Rebecca went on to Barry University in Miami on a full ride. She then had in her right mind and graduated from Texas A&M University in master's degree. When I gave her a letter of recommendation for undergrad, I may have slipped in the Texas A&M one also, but she finally got there for grad school on the front side. Graduated with a master's in public administration from the George Bush School, and now lives back in this area and is the COO for Pro Players Foundation, a wonderful organization, and just one of those great stories. And she was one of the first. She started off as president, but there's been so many of y'all that have gone through. It's truly amazing. And I can tell you, y'all talk about how it's impacted for y'all. It's helped us as board members. So I can't thank you enough. And Ms. Hollinger for all your work, because it's a lot of staff work. And to the board, it's a lot of work to work with this also. But to the students, thank you for your input. It helps make us govern this district better. And Ms. Mays, thank you for the time. And thank you to all of my colleagues for continuing to make sure we have a voice from the students coming back to us.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. Now we move to the part where we are going to recognize our Community Engaged for Excellence Award for Appreciation. Ms. Anita Foster.
President Mays, members of the board, Dr. Cavazos, we are honored to recognize tonight the Arlington Police Department with the Community Engaged for Excellence Award. When we start to think about the list of the many ways that they help us, it truly reads like one of those receipts you get at the drugstore. It's a very, very long list because they're so engaged every single day in helping our district be the best we can be. In the mentoring category, they help us with 2 programs. There's one called Coach 5.0, and the other is the Mentoring Arlington Youth. Established in 2015, Coach 5.0 is a program where Arlington police officers help teens cope with the pressures associated with being student athletes. They work with coaches as the officers help to reinforce the messages of perseverance, discipline, and teamwork. The positive results are immediate and long-term for the students. The Mentoring Arlington Youth Program serves young African American and Hispanic male students in the 7th and 8th grade. The 18-month program, that's 18 months, offers interactive workshops on leadership, team building, education, career development. To emphasize the importance of giving, the program also includes community service learning modules. Career exploration programs are another way the Arlington Police Department helps us, and this includes the Hometown Recruiting Program. And being new to the district, I didn't know about this one, so when I studied, I thought it was really amazing. So students that have an interest in law enforcement while they're in school can come back through the Hometown Recruiting Program after they graduate from UT Arlington through a partnership, and they can apply for work with the Arlington Police Department, and they'll open up those opportunities for those students to excel. And after that, they're also invited to recognition ceremonies, and they receive preferred consideration in upcoming police training academies, which is really outstanding. And the last program we'll talk about tonight is the Youth Explorer Program. And this is open to kids that are 14 to 20 interested in pursuing a career in law enforcement. The members receive police-related training and exposure that includes things like ride-outs with Arlington Police Department patrol officers. The Explorer Post members are also involved in community service projects all across Arlington. And the Take 25 campaign, that's one that's coming up on May the 25th, and Dr. Cavazos and the Arlington Police Department Chief Will Johnson will be partnering up together, as they have for many years, to take to the schools and encourage parents and teachers, all of us that have responsibility over children, to take 25 minutes of our life and help children understand the importance of safety. And so that's going to be coming up on May the 25th. So look for more information on that. With these programs and others, the Arlington Police Department just continues to be a committed partner with the Arlington Independent School District. They are more than deserving of this award. We really wish we could do more than just recognize with words and a plaque, but every single day, the presence of Arlington Police Department is with us in our district, and we're incredibly grateful for that. So I'm going to invite the Arlington Police Chief, Chief Will Johnson, to come forward and receive the award.
We're humbled and grateful for the partnership that we have. I would tell you just quite simply, it boils down to this. I lead the greatest police department in the nation, full of compassionate officers that love this community and they love our kids. And they're pouring themselves out to make sure that our kids have the best opportunities that they can to have the richest experience both in their education and beyond. And so thank you for acknowledging their fine work, and I accept this award tonight on their behalf, very gratefully.
Thank you, Chief Johnson.
Chief, on behalf of our school district and our entire board, thank you for your partnership. It is very unique, the relationship that the school district has with our police department. Chief, a large part of that is because of you and your openness and your engagement with our students and our schools. There's a reason that the Arlington Independent School District continues to work on safety and security in a way that's really in an excellent manner. And it's because of your leadership and your entire police department. So Chief, on behalf of the school district, thank you for your leadership and your department's engagement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Ms. Foster. Next, we have a special recognition of Arlington police officers that have assisted a student that we would like to recognize this evening. So if I could please have Officer Rodney Rundles, Officer Terry Slaybaugh, Officer Jill Willis, Officer Keith Farley, and Officer Derek Sheriff, please come forward. So tonight, we want to show our gratitude to an outstanding group of officers from the Arlington Police Department. On March the 27th, Rodney Rundles, Terry Slaybaugh, Jill Willis, Keith Farley, and Derek Sheriff demonstrated an extraordinary act of service. They were resourceful and quick thinking as they flagged down an 18-wheeler and directed the driver to pull under a bridge just below where a teenage student was standing and looking like he was getting ready to jump. As soon as the truck driver got under the bridge, the teen jumped off the bridge and landed safely on the trailer. The teen was not injured, and officers took him to the hospital to get help. Thank you for intervening, helping this teen, and showing that you cared. Again, we'd like to recognize you all for an extraordinary act of service to the Arlington ISD and its students. And we would like to present you with certificates. Chief Johnson, can we have all of y'all come up for a group picture up front with us, real quick?
All the officers.
All of the officers.
We so appreciate you.
So we'll just stand up here.
Do we need to squish together or stay at our seats?
Chief doesn't have any control. Anxious to serve. Aaron, you just want to?
That was 30 seconds for making.
I'm in plenty of photos. No, this is Zoom lens, and we use iPhone. Y'all come on this side. Who's gonna sing? Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Count. There we go. 1, 2.
Okay, next on the agenda is our Citizens Bond Oversight Committee presentation. We're going to move that till after the break and actually move up our administrative appointments, okay? So Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays. I'd like to recommend that the board appoint the individuals discussed in closed session for principal of Young Junior High, assistant principal for Arlington College and Career High School, assistant principal for Lamar High School, and assistant principal for Wimbish World Language Academy.
Do we have a motion to approve the administrative appointments as discussed in executive session? Hey, Justin?
I move that we approve the administrative appointments discussed in closed session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Justin Chapa, a second by Aaron Reich, Dr. Aaron Reich. Any discussion? Seeing none, vote. Very good. All in favor? It is unanimous. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays. It's my pleasure to present the new principal for Young Junior High School, Ms. Stacy Humbles. Stacy attended the University of Iowa for Bachelor of Arts in English, University of Texas at Arlington for Master of Ed in Ed Leadership. Most recently, the principal at Butler Elementary School, has been an assistant principal at Butler Elementary, has been a 7th and 8th grade English teacher coach at Workman Junior High, and has been an 11th grade English teacher coach at Kemp High School. Stacy, congratulations.
Thank you. President Mays and members of the school board, Dr. Cavazos, I want to thank you all for this opportunity. To be able to serve the students and staff of Young Junior High is a gift that I know I will love. I'm eager to serve this community that is well known for excellence and high expectations. I will continue to uphold traditions and build upon the wonderful foundation that has been set for Young. I want to thank Dr. Wirtz and Dr. Buell for always inspiring me and pushing me as a principal. I want to thank Dr. Jarko, Dr. Brown, and the endless list of colleagues who encouraged me to take this next step in my career. And I'd like to thank Kelly Hastings. You've been a mentor to me for years, and I'm honored to follow in your footsteps. I'd like to acknowledge my husband, Shelby, who has supported me each step of the way and helped me through these life-changing decisions. And I'd like to introduce my children. My son, Jalen, is a 7th grader at Shackelford, who's already told me that he'll be watching what side I sit on at Shackelford versus Young games. And my daughter, Calissa. Calissa will be a 6th grader at Butler next year. Calissa and I will be sad being apart from each other, but I'm also excited for her to experience life as a normal child. Being the principal's kid is not easy, but neither of my children ever made me feel that they wanted anything else. I love you both very much. 16 years ago, I started in Arlington at Workman Junior High as a teacher and a coach. I want to thank my Workman team for those early years. I knew our relationship at that time was something special, and I love seeing how we've grown throughout those years. That bunch of people can be found all over AISD now, as a Milliken winner at Arlington Collegiate, as a principal at Turning Point, counselor at Shackelford, dean of instruction at Knox, librarian at Hale, and I think there may even be a teacher at Young. I want to thank Mr. Belisle for hiring me at Workman, having faith in me when I struggled, and ultimately encouraging me to be a leader. 8 years ago, I took the leap into administration. After having taught in high school and junior high, I applied to be the AP at Butler Elementary. I remember interviewing and thinking, I would love to work there, but there's no way I'm going to get that job because I don't know little people. I've learned so much as the AP and principal of Butler Elementary. I learned about little people and the joy they have for every day. And I learned about the importance of elementary school in a human's life. 4- and 5-year-olds enter the building a little bit crazed. They don't know how to walk in a line or zip up their pants, and they definitely can't open a fruit cup at lunch. They jump everywhere. Their teachers teach them social skills and routines and how to not lick our friends. And then their teachers teach them to read. And then 3 years later, they take STAR. Elementary teachers have to teach kids how to bubble a Scantron at the same time that they are teaching them why the middle finger is the bad one. Elementary is an absolutely magical time, and I will cherish every day I had at Butler. I love each person in that building and will continue to keep those relationships forever. You are all a part of me. And now I'm heading back to the world of junior high. Whenever you tell someone you work at a junior high, you're often met with sympathy. I think everyone can agree that it's a tough age, but for me, it's my favorite age. I have always said that if you have a gift for junior high, then it's where you need to be. And I believe that this is where I need to be. To the young community, I'm thrilled to join you. I pledge to you that I will commit myself to Young and the young community. I will become one of you. I will work, cry, and laugh alongside you and live every day as a dedicated servant to the teachers, parents, and students of Young Junior High. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce the Assistant Principal for Arlington College and Career High School, Miss Amy Cunningham, and actually she's not able to be here tonight, so we'll bring her back at the June 4th board meeting for an introduction, but she was appointed tonight. Next, I'd like to present the new Assistant Principal for Lamar High School, Miss Carolyn Longoria. Carolyn attended the University of Texas at Arlington for a Bachelor of Arts in History, University of Texas at Arlington for Master of Ed in Ed Leadership and Policy Studies. Most recently, a U.S. History and AP Psychology teacher at Lamar High School, has taught U.S. History, World Geography, Government at Sam Houston High School, and has taught World Geography, U.S. History at Bowie High School. Carolyn, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you to our school board president, Mays, and the board of trustees, as well as Dr. Cavazos, our superintendent, and our area superintendent, Dr. Jarko, for this amazing opportunity to serve as assistant principal at Lamar High School. I guess you could say that I got the education gene. So I want to thank my mom for instilling a passion for this field and for a desire to serve others. I wouldn't be able to pursue my dreams while being a wife and a mother if I didn't have my supportive husband, who couldn't be here tonight because he's on the ball fields with our boys. And so that's just the way it goes when you've got active little kids, and that's where he is. But I love him and I thank him very much. My boys are such an amazing blessing to my life, and I think they give me a new perspective that helps me work with both the parents and the students that I serve. So I think that everything comes full circle, and I appreciate them for that. Arlington ISD is dedicated to the continuing growth and development of its employees. This district is a model for lifelong learning, and my career is a testimony to that. From the teacher's mentor who took me under their wing as a fresh out of college first-year teacher, to Principal Andy Hagman and the awesome Lamar staff that have taught me how to be an administrator, I found that every day is about learning and improving to provide the best education possible for our students. It's the path that I plan to continue to follow with Arlington ISD. And so I'm very proud to be a part of this district and to continue my service with this district, the district where my kiddos will grow up. And I'm proud to be here where potential gets real and where Viking fight never dies. Yeah.
Next, the Assistant Principal for Wimbish World Language Academy, Ms. Sylvia Valencia. Sylvia attended Texas Wesleyan University for Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, TCU for Master's in Political Science, Texas Christian University for Master of Ed in Ed Leadership and Policy Studies. Most recently, an assistant principal in Fort Worth ISD, has been a bilingual teacher, also in Fort Worth ISD, and has also been a bilingual admissions academic counselor with Job Corps and TRIO. Sylvia, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. President Mays, members of the board, and Dr. Cavazos, thank you for this opportunity to serve as an administrator here in Arlington ISD. I come to you with over 20 years of educational experience that includes 8 years as an assistant principal in Fort Worth ISD. And an almost doctorate degree in December, finishing that up. Very excited about that. I am also very excited to begin a new journey in the World Language Academy. And something small about me, or little about me. When I was 10 years old, I came to this country not knowing the language, the culture, or the traditions. I remember appreciating the beauty of this country while celebrating and remembering my own culture as well. I'm very proud to be a bilingual and bicultural Latina woman. And I say this to say that the students in Wimbish will be immersed with not only the opportunity to be bilingual, but also bicultural. They will have a unique opportunity to foster academic, cognitive, and social cultural skills in 2 languages, and sometimes 3. I'm excited to be part of this academy. I have traveled all over the world, from the Amazons to the Sahara deserts. I have triple nationalities. I'm Spaniard. I was born in Spain. Ecuadorian, my parents are both from there, and I became a U.S. citizen 5 years ago. In saying this, I'm saying that I'm loving and appreciating the world around us. It is this excitement and love of learning that I will convey to the children at the World Language Academy. We're going to begin this journey And I want to, first of all, just say that my family could not be here today because we had a cousin who passed away, and so they're at a wake tonight. So when I leave here, I'll be going there. But they were very excited to see this new journey in my life. So thank you once again. Thank you to Dr. Brown. Thank you to Dr. Hardy and Dr. Cavasso for this opportunity. And I would look forward to meeting all the families, the students, and the teachers and the staff of our community. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. So as is our custom, we ask that the appointees follow Mr. Kale to the lobby for a receiving line so each of us can greet and meet you and welcome you. If you would please let the board go first, we would appreciate that. And we will take a brief break to participate. It's now 7:46, so we will start at 8 o'clock. Okay, our next presentation is the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee presentation.
Thank you, President Mays. And at this time, I'll ask Cindy Powell, our CFO, to introduce this portion of the presentation. But ahead of time, we will thank our CBOC members and our chair for their dedicated work and engagement with our district in these projects. So, Ms. Powell.
Absolutely. So thank you. And President Mays, I have to get used to that now. President Mays, board members, Dr. Cavazos, good evening. We are here this evening for our CBOC to present a report to you all on their work. This committee is, they provide a wonderful service to the district. They've met quarterly over the past year and visited a different site at each meeting. We always try to take our CBOC members to see different types of work being done through the bond program, and we visit sites all across town, all grade levels, high school, junior high, elementary, and see classroom work. We've, in years past, we've looked at fine art spaces. We've looked at this year also athletic space and one of the MACs and special ed spaces. And then we go to a library, we sit down and we go through the business portion of our meeting. We present a lot of information to them each time, and they ask wonderful questions. They have great input. As you all know, you heard even at the dinner meeting, the SLAB students participate with CBOC, and this year in particular, we had a group that was very engaged and offered lots of input from a student's perspective. And so we certainly appreciate that. So I enjoy working with this group, and I've been very proud since we began CBOC, even back with the 2009 bond program. I think it's something that this district should be very proud to have. And so with that, I will introduce Will Dekine, who is the chairperson of CBOC, and he's going to bring this year's report from the committee. And there are several members here, and I will let him do introductions with them. So.
Good evening, Madam President, distinguished members of the board, Dr. Cavazos. My name is William Dekine. Thank you for that introduction, Cindy. We are here to provide you our annual report for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. I've had the pleasure of serving on the committee for 4 years, the past 3 years of which I have served as the chairman. And I can say that it gives me, I can say this with great confidence, that our district has done an outstanding job administering the $663 million bond. It has been transformative for our district. It has done some fantastic things for the students, the teachers, the faculty, the families, the community of our schools. And through this process, I have been duly impressed with how that administration has handled the conduct of the bond. And we'll get into some of those details, but truly, they have demonstrated without question that they can handle this level of financial responsibility and execute it in an extremely professional and excellent manner. Tonight, I'm going to cover our purpose as a bond oversight committee. I'm going to briefly discuss the composition of our committee, we'll discuss our meeting schedule, and then we're going to go through the charge of what we were asked to do. There are 11 points of our charge that we'll go through. And through that, we will identify our observations and any potential recommendations that we have reviewed. And then we're going to consolidate those recommendations at the end for quick reference, and then we'll spend a few moments and talk about the effect that this bond has had on the community, on our school district, and what the intended effect was, and do a little comparison analysis. So without any further ado, I'd like to say that our purpose as a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee is to provide transparency to the community, to enhance public confidence that our tax dollars are being well spent, the money, the proceeds raised through the bond have been applied appropriately, and that our district is doing what they need to do to execute the bond. The purpose of our committee is to provide findings and recommendations to you, the Board of Trustees, in our observations, and report on the expenditure of those funds, the progress of the bond program, and any opportunities that we identify that can help the district maximize the potential to the bond program. The committee itself is composed of 11 primary members and 6 alternate members. Some of them are present here in the back. Hello, everyone. We come from the community from a lot of different backgrounds. We're parents, we're teachers, we're law enforcement, we're engineers. We represent Arlington at large and as a community with a lot of different perspectives. And through that lens, we happily took up the charge to review the bond, oversee it, and understand its impact on the community. So we do meet quarterly. Our meeting for the past years has been at the Crow Elementary. We did that in August. We also did a meeting on October 1st to orient our new members that were new to the bond program. We rotate some off annually. And we also had a meeting at Seguin High School. In January, we met at Bowles Junior High. And then in April, we met at Lamar High School in the MAC. And we will meet again in August for our final quarterly meeting of this committee, this term of this committee. The first charge we are expected to review is to essentially look at what the original intent of the Capital Needs Steering Committee was for the allocation of what this bond was to be, to orient ourselves to what the bond was supposed to do. And in that process, we have observed throughout many years that the AISD staff has done an outstanding job onboarding new members, orienting them to the program, identifying the strategic linkage between what the bond was supposed to do and the intended effect that we were trying to get. Again, as we recommended last year, continue to sustain those efforts. They are first class, they are professional. The onboarding and information provided by Cindy Powell and her team of experts has been very helpful and very informative to bring everyone up to speed. Our second charge was to review the process that is used by the AISD staff to solicit bonds, to qualify them. Basically, what is the process they go through in order to get projects funded? We observed throughout that the quoting and bidding processes, such as the CSP, were very well explained to us. We understood how contractor performance was tied to potential future bids. We had the opportunity to observe instances of cost savings through excellent contractor management. When you think of how long this bond has been going on through the years and how much money was involved, it was truly amazing that they were able to maximize, I think, in many, many, many cases, that potential. Additionally, we would recommend that we continue to maximize that taxpayer value through the management of RFQs, which they are doing, so that is a sustain, that is a positive. They've continued to develop their contractor symposiums, which are becoming more and more beneficial to identifying other vendors that provide services to us, other project services as well. And we also recognize that this year, the presence of Arlington in other symposiums, such as those in Dallas, is really a better opportunity for us to kind of expand our reach in terms of identifying potential new vendors and contractors. So that is something to sustain. So we're growing our outlook. Our third charge was to review reports on the current status of the implementation and whether what we were trying to do was actually meeting the intent and the effect. And we observed for the facility construction efforts, the fine arts efforts, the safety, security, technology efforts, and those of the transportation were all meeting the bond's intent. We recommend that we continue to sustain the website presence that tracks and documents that progress through pictures, through easy to navigate to pages. It is now quite simple for someone to come into the district's webpage and drill down through the bond program to a particular school to see what's going on at that school, look at photos, and sometimes they are posted within hours of being taken to track that progress. As much progress as we have there, we do have a recommendation after looking at the City of Arlington's website. It doesn't very easily link into our district and what we're doing. So that could be a potential opportunity for us, is to ask the city to review the hyperlinks that they have within their own webpage and how it ties back to our district, and in particular our bond program as well. Our fourth charge was to track the budgets, the encumbrances, expenditures, estimated cost for completion, basically see how are we doing with the administration financially. And it appears that our bond is on track, and I think that that's truly an outstanding feat. And I know we're not quite done yet, but we are probably going to come in slightly under budget to the tune of maybe 1%. You know, there's still some time to go. Things could happen. I'm not tying it down, but that's extraordinary to me when you think $663 million and we're landing within 1% under budget. I think that speaks to this district's ability to administer and track, and in some cases rebid or change up your contractor management and review and assess where you're at. And so it speaks very strongly to that. Sustain those efforts. Sustain those efforts. I think we're on glide path. I think we're looking really good. Our fifth charge was to review the hub utilization. And I can happily report that due to the district's diligent efforts, we are at approximately 19%, which is up from last year, which was 17.14%. We know that the AISD staff considers the vendors' past performance on what they said they would do, their commitments, and what they actually delivered. And that weighs in on whether or not they get a rebid or an opportunity to bid again or get another contract awarded. I mean, all of that is considered by the district. And I think it speaks well of our paying attention to what's going on in our community. The district also, I think it perhaps, we collectively came to a consensus a year or so ago that having a hub consultant look out across the district, the area of Arlington, greater area, would help us understand, what is the potential hub utilization opportunities that are out there through Akari. And I think that has sort of also provided us with a lot of information to help identify potential new vendors and really understand the landscape that we live in here in Arlington, Texas. So our recommendation was to sustain those efforts, to review the hub participation on those projects, and potentially gives us a better feel now for where we are and allows you to then establish where we want to go in the future. Our sixth charge was to review any internal or external audits that were conducted. What we found pretty interesting was that there were some external audit scopes that were drawn up to go take a look at construction contracts and billings. Our internal controls within the district, those demonstrated through Cindy Powell and her staff and Kelly Horn really helped identify any potential projects that needed to be looked at. So those internal controls then led them to take a deeper look, to initiate audits at Peach, McNutt. Those were completed. They provided some significant leverage to exercise contract requirements and validated our internal controls. So it was a very good thing. They have identified some future audits as well. The CTC, the Max, Martin Miller Little, Ellis, Nichols, Sherrod, Turning Point, secondary school as well. We recommend that we continue to sustain those efforts. To some extent, the internal controls help us identify what we should be looking at. We also think there's a component of randomness as well that comes into play for identifying where we would potentially take a harder look at things, just to make sure everything was done as described. Our seventh charge was to review and provide input on the AISD communications going out to the public. This has been an ever-evolving effort by the district, and I think that we would say that the onboarding efforts internally that we see for orienting new AISD staff were pretty remarkable. We had several key leaders from within the district come and brief our team that were not there a year before, that were new hires from other districts. And you would have thought that they were there when the first meeting for the capital needs got together to figure, what do we want to do? Clearly communicated to them, clearly buy-in was demonstrated by those personnel, and it was clear to us that they were committed to the direction that this bond was allowing for the district. We believe that now that you have identified and hired an executive director of communications and marketing, that you've got an opportunity to continue to leverage those efforts. We also think that developing common talking points in a repository that is a pool that not only internal leaders to the district, but citizens as well could reach in and grab and understand those talking points, that they're consistent with any potential future bond activities would be a good thought. And please continue to leverage your social media platforms. You know, people are communicating in many different ways every year. It seems there's a new app that everyone's using every few months. By and large, your communications department is staying on top of that and continuing to develop those opportunities to reach the community in the ways that they communicate with each other. Our eighth charge was to go out and see things, to visit sites, conduct on-site visits, make our own personal observations. And I think that Cindy Powell and her staff were not only excellent bringing us to different locations, but at every meeting through Kelly Horn as well, providing us visual representations of what's going on, updates, pictures. We were very well informed. It also appeared in many cases that the contractors that had been identified and selected were partners with those local area school principals. They were very responsive to principal requests, and in some cases that may mean, hey, don't, you know, use drills and hammers for this period because we've got some testing, all the way to, hey, you know, this layout that we're looking at doesn't quite work for me. Could I get a door here or something? And they were very responsive and receptive to that, and it really seemed to be a good partnership. So continue to do those visits with any future Citizens Bond Oversight Committees. I think it provides great insight to those that are on the team. Also, we were witness to some of the outstanding special education facilities that are now new to this district. I think that we could leverage some of our video capabilities through the CTC, et cetera, to advertise to the community that presence. It was really remarkable how this district has gone to great measures to accommodate students with special needs, and that there is a place for everyone in our community. And I think that's an often overlooked but very special point. And I think we do it well, and I think we could advertise the heck out of it. Our ninth charge was to essentially agree to all of these recommendations. All the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee members agreed by majority vote. When they were not present at a meeting, their input was solicited through email exchange. There was significant participation this year by SLAB membership. More so than in previous years, we had some really great input from some really key leaders at the high school level. that not only informed us of how things were at their particular school, but also informed us how things were for their siblings, their neighbors, their friends, their family. Whatever was done this year was significantly better, and I would continue that effort because it really made an impact on our team as well. We'd love to hear from the students. So we would continue to recommend encouraging those students to participate and attend. It was really well done. We also have to provide, as part of our charge, an annual report. It was actually stated as semi-annually or more frequently. I think we have over the years settled on an annual briefing. We still believe that that is appropriate. Gives us an opportunity to do some quarterly visits to understand and then come back on a yearly basis and provide an update to you of what we've seen and what we think. So we recommend continuing that annual reporting. We also really like it when members of the Board of Trustees are at our meetings. We appreciate that. It's good to see you vote with your time, and it's good that you're there to not only hear what we're hearing, but in some cases participate as well, and that's a very good thing. We appreciate that. Our final 11th charge was to coordinate with the superintendent or his designee to maintain a presence of our activities on the AISD website. It's very clearly marked right on the homepage. Here's where I go for bond information. All our meeting minutes, notes, materials are presented in an easy to access archival fashion. It's really clear, very transparent who was on the committee, when they were there, what they saw, what the materials were, what the progress is. There's been great strides with the efforts to dashboard and really communicate to the community our status at schools. Applaud those efforts, continue to leverage that, continue to leverage your social media. You're really providing some opportunities here to push to people advertisements of what's going on with our bond programs to inform people as opposed to the simple, hey, I'm just going to go to the website when I want to. Perhaps look at ways that we can push information out and through some of these new social media platforms that are available. So the next two slides, I have essentially pulled all of the recommendations that we've discussed as I've been going through each of our charges. They're consolidated in these 2 pages. In the interest of time, what I'd rather talk to you about over the next few minutes is what we thought as stated, the expected outcomes were of the bond program back in 2014, and go point by point across these 7 areas to give you our perspective and our understanding of what impact the bond program has had in our community. So essentially they're grouped into 7 large outcomes: an improved utilization of our facilities, the facility condition improvements, safety and security improvements, expanded career and technical education opportunities, focus on science, technology, engineering, math at the elementary school level, choice for our students, and access. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the improvement of the utilization of the facilities. This bond built 2 new schools in East Arlington that relieved a lot of overcrowding pressure over there in East Arlington. There are new facilities that were created, such as the Diaper Career Center, 6 multipurpose MAC facilities that really relieves a lot of pressure on the high schools. So students, now have the opportunity to transit to the Agricultural Technical Center or to the CTC and participate in programs. And that, obviously, when they're at those locations during the normal school day, that relieves the amount of, folks on a particular campus. Consolidation of 4 junior highs was an efficient utilization of those facilities. There was a lot of repurposing of spaces. 2 underutilized elementary schools were converted into fine arts and dual language academies that are drawing folks by application now to them. That's a real smart move. Ferguson Junior High was repurposed for venture and newcomer programs. There are lots of athletic spaces now at high schools that have been repurposed. There's support to fine arts or support to athletics. And we've reduced the number of temporary school buildings that were being used for instructional purposes across the board. A 41% reduction overall in those temporary spaces, but I think virtually in every case, those temporary buildings are not being used anymore for primary instruction. They're in brick and mortar rooms now. It's great for storage in some cases. It makes sense, or any additional tutoring perhaps, but we've had a tremendous impact with the bond in terms of improving the utilization of our facilities. Those facilities have been improved significantly. There have been some condition improvements at all campuses minus Adams, and of course Adams is a brand new school, so it's in great shape. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades that have been done at the schools have already shown a 14% reduction in annual electricity costs, and we're not done yet. There's still some work going on. Flooring and lighting updates are transformational at schools. Bright lights, being able to see down the halls, having good flooring, roof replacements, taking care of leaky roofs as identified. Enhancements for our special needs students and those in the family that need ADA accessibility, that's there. The auditoriums have been improved, the parking lots, the landscaping. This bond has really changed the face of our school district and our schools in a positive way. And it's been our pleasure and opportunity to visit some of these locations and see how those staff members, those students, those teachers have really benefited from those enhancements through this bond program. There have been some safety and security improvements as well. Nearly 80% of our schools are covered, the common areas are covered with cameras now. The old outdated video recording systems are replaced with fancy digital high-definition cameras. We've included security vestibules at all of the elementary schools, and in many cases, that has provided a level of security that we didn't have before, controlled access. Folks walk in the door, they get directed to a staff person at the school to either allow them to continue into the school or not. They get screened at the door. A tremendous amount of safety and security for our students in that regard. Additional keyless entry points have been placed, so we don't have to leave our doors unlocked for teachers to go in and out. They can badge through. That's really important. You can not only let a teacher through, but you can track who went in and when. That could be useful as well. Bus tracking systems have been installed, cameras on some of the buses. We have a really good feel for our transportation system, which really has its work cut out for it in any given school day, given the amount of moving pieces across the district when you've got folks going from a high school to a CTC center or moving throughout the district, let alone just going to and from school. We've got that tracking system in place. Communications, they did a tremendous upgrade on the whole server room for the district. The pipelines for information at the schools have increased. That was pretty apparent before. In some cases, you had little to no signal Wi-Fi capability. As a guest at virtually any school, I can walk in and get access to an internet connection. Not only is that nice as a guest to walk in, but obviously if you're a student, it's really great to have the bandwidth to support the new computers that you've got as well. We've done a great deal also. We've observed that the district has upgraded a lot of its burglar and fire alarm systems, and there's digital signage as you walk in the front door at every campus as well. And so those are all tremendous security improvements that enhance through the bond. Obviously, the career and technical education opportunities have expanded through our technical center. We would highlight that there are 30 comprehensive programs now and 29 industry-based certificates. That's extraordinary. Back in 2014, the district was issuing on the order of 680 certificates, professional certificates. We're on track to do over 2,000 this year, and that's pretty incredible. The Agricultural Science Center is really amazing. There have been a lot of improvements to all of the career technical training opportunities at each of the high schools in addition to the technical center. Right now, I think we've got on the order of 3,700 students enrolled in these technical programs that were not enrolled a few years ago. They didn't have access to it. It wasn't an opportunity for them, and they now have it through this bond. There's been a focus on science, technology, engineering, and math at the elementary school levels. Each elementary school has 2 STEM labs. We've got access to new computers. The kids have that at their disposal, and that's how they're learning these days. It's fantastic. Another objective of the bond, the effect we're looking for is choice. With 2 fine arts dual language academies, you've got choices for students you didn't have before. You've got career opportunities. You didn't have those before. Ag science, fine arts centers, you didn't have those before. Athletics complex, didn't have those in as much opportunity as we do now. And finally, access. With the purchase of new buses to get our students to these programs, we've we've really said everything across the board that we have observed in the district. It appears that student can get to it if they want to. You've made that available to them. Every school's got strings. Every school in the fine arts program no longer has to charge any type of a rental fee for students. It's accessible. So the barriers have been removed in many cases, allowing our students access to those opportunities, and it's really becoming a great choice for them. Subsequently, we've seen upticks in our band and orchestra. We see that just having those instruments there has had an impact. A couple years ago, we noticed that for the first time in many, many years, I think it was since 1985, all of the high schools were at a state band competition and were rated superior, which is great for them, but it also speaks to the effect of the bond program in terms of providing instruments, providing new uniforms, allowing that access, and supporting those programs. There are devices in classrooms that students have, that teachers have, and we've really done a tremendous job, I think, as a school district, providing those opportunities and that access to it. So as a committee, we would like to thank the Board of Trustees. I think each and every one of you in some way has participated at some point with our committee. We appreciate that, your leadership, your oversight. Also would like to thank the superintendent. We'd like to thank Cindy Powell, Kelly Horn, Chad, and others who have participated and really showed us what a professional organization the AISD has and how professionally it has administered this bond program. So, without any further ado, I am here to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Okay, I've got a couple lights coming on. Okay, so it didn't show up on my screen and I just ignored them. So, Dr. Reich, if you can turn on your mic.
Oh,
Okay, he's off.
We're good. We're good.
There's no screen.
Excuse us with the adjustment of technology, and
There's no screen.
you'll get there, Ms. Mays, very quickly. Don't worry. So, first off, thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the committee. I'd like to take the opportunity, if you would introduce those that are here, and then if you could please stand so that we could recognize you and appreciate you.
Okay. Would you all stand up? Introduce yourselves.
My name's Dan Rankin. Rob Klein.
Tricia Carey, Suzanne Kelly, and Shelley Freeman.
Thank you for your work. I so appreciate you being here this evening, as well as the tremendous investment in time, not just the physical time, but the mental preparation time that goes into before the meetings, after the meetings, digesting all of the information. It is incredible to look at this presentation on this side of the bond. And really, to me, it's what in all the positive comments and all the positive recommendations that you put out there on behalf of the committee is, I'd say, an affirmation or reaffirmation of the district doing a great job of implementing our vision, our shared vision as a board, as a district, as a community for what our children need for generations. I really think the last slides where you basically did the synopsis of each of the different types of impact was really kind of moving to me to watch you do that as just reflection on everything that we have all accomplished as a community together. There's still great things ahead coming out on time and on budget, considering the times that we had undergone in our marketplace with disasters and economies and growth, and then the increase in prices and the decrease of contractors because they were going to where the dollars were for emergency situations and response was no walk in the park for all of our staff. So from Dr. Cavazos, Ms. Powell, Mr. Horn, and everybody else, thank you so much for all of that heavy lifting and monitoring. And we've said it a few times up here that in jest that now Ms. Powell is allowing us to say we're good. It's been a long time coming. And we weren't sure if that was going to ever be able to be said, so that it is very remarkable. Obviously a glowing report, if you will, great recommendations, and there's, again, that's an affirmation, reaffirmation of us moving forward. I don't think there's any plans to rock those boats, so to speak, and stop those things, and appreciate some of the new thoughts and ideas with partnering with our city and that type of thing, and we'll certainly have discussions there. I would ask, out of all of the great things, seeing we are preparing for another bond that is very likely, and and I would say that to any of you, if you want to reapply, I'm sure the application will be made available to you. But seriously, in moving forward for that next Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, is there anything or are there any things that structurally you see or saw that could be different, both in makeup and representation of the community, as well as just anything specific to how the meetings went? If there's anything that was an overarching thought of, I wish we could have done this, or this could be better, because that's what we want to do in honoring your time and attention to what we're trying to do as a community. We want to make that as efficient and effective and honestly pleasant for you as possible. So any thoughts like that?
We had a couple of discussions along those lines. Last year, we really didn't have a significant amount of SLAB participation, and that was something that we were recommending, hey, let's look at maybe opening it up to students that were more involved or wanted to be involved. But whatever happened this year, we got a different crop of folks in, and if there were some structural changes or what you did made an impact. So with respect to SLAB, we like having the student leaders there, sustain that and continue that. What was interesting in our own discussions is something that came out is not necessarily the structure of our Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, but awareness of, hey, you can come out and join it and be part of it. And so some of our members really didn't know until this year or the year that they came on that it was an opportunity. It wasn't very well advertised, hey, come out and participate. And so as we're talking about leveraging some of those social media platforms that are pushing information out to people as opposed to pulling people in through a website, we may look at trying to solicit participation through our citizenry through some of those methodologies. And so just getting the word out might increase the number of folks that are interested. I think also in a succinct way, being able to scope, it is a lot of work on Cindy's part. I would say, in all fairness, we attend the meetings and are provided a 3-hour fire hose of information that the commitment, though, by and large, is not that hard. It's not that insurmountable. And so I think communicating to folks that, this is something that could be done by really anyone to come in and participate, and it isn't a tremendous amount of a time crunch, and you get a lot out of it, getting involved in your community. I think maybe some ways that we could just get more awareness and get more diversity or more folks on the committee. Okay. Otherwise, structurally, I think that we're all fairly happy with how it's set up. Those would be my observations. Any others that you'd think of? Yep. Okay.
Well, by all means, if you do think of anything, please let us know. Send us an email, give us a call. Certainly want to know. And yeah, I didn't necessarily want to put you on the spot, but I was very curious about that, if there was anything overarching. So as you have time to sleep on it or digest, we'd be more than willing to hear that, to make it as efficient and effective as possible.
Maybe one other potential is, as we're getting communicated, anything that is developed in the financial needs now, or the needs assessment, will get communicated through a strategic plan to whoever is on that bond oversight committee. It may be helpful to have some of those folks that were part of that original team there at the initial kind of handoff of information to help facilitate
Okay, very good.
understanding of what the intent was in some cases. But the staff clearly knew what that was and communicated that very well to us.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Mr. Wilbanks?
Thank you. Mr. DeKine, I'll be brief. I only have 17 questions on 17 of your 18 recommendations, if that's okay?
Sure.
The new guy's funny.
Wow. No, only, I think only three. I think only three. Don't panic, don't panic. So first of all, thank you. I know sometimes from being on your committee, it seems like you're trying to herd cats when trying to come up with recommendations. And I know the work that goes into it, and you guys do get a fire hose of information. And the biggest kudos needs to go to the way you've organized the information for us. Now being on this side and receiving it, it is very well organized. I like the addition you made a few years ago of the glide path, showing how we're on target. And especially like the way that you've broken it out. And, we've struggled in the past on how to present this information to the board. And you went back to the basics and made it really simple and focused on what exactly you guys were charged with doing and tying the recommendations specifically to the charge. Definitely, I think my colleagues will agree, is very useful for us. And then now that we're at the end, I'll echo what Dr. Reich said. The new addition at the end, tying back to the original goal and providing proof that, hey, here's how we met and maybe exceeded our initial expectations of what this bond was going to do for our district. So let me be brief, like I said, and get straight to the question. My first question had to do, when you were here last year, I know SLAB has always been something you struggled, and then that we've kind of struggled in getting our hands around, and it was our first time out with this bond. And you mentioned that, I believe at the time we were going to RFP for a consultant to hire to help us in that area. So you mentioned we were up from 17% last year to 19%. How much of that would you attribute to working with someone like Akari? Or is that hard to gauge?
I don't know that from my vantage point, I can tie linkage between those 2 points. What I would reiterate and what I said before is that it was made clear to us, and throughout the bond over the several years that I have seen it, that the input of what a contractor said they would do versus what actually was done was driving a lot of the decision-making from Kelly Horn and his team. I cannot speak necessarily to your direct question about the impact of Akari. I'm sorry.
Were you guys briefed? Did they come in and present to the board, to the Bond Oversight Committee, or?
Akari as a subcontractor was not, but I believe that Kelly Horn and his team obviously would have received that download of information. We were briefed how they had leveraged that information and expanded their contractor symposiums to include vendors that they hadn't included before, how they leveraged that information to participate in external contractor symposiums as well to sort of expand the net of potential contractors. Frankly, that's my perspective.
I will yield to the gentleman to my right, the left.
So I just wanted to provide you a little bit of detail, Mr. Wilbanks. Either our last meeting or the meeting before that, we actually did discuss that in one of our bond updates. And what Ms. Powell had informed us at that point is that the work with our vendor is still more at their level, at the staff level, and they're not quite ready yet to present with and work with CBOC directly, but that is coming.
Okay,
So
good.
it's
That
already
was
in the
gonna be
works.
my
It just hasn't
recommendation.
happened yet. So that's all. Thank you.
So my next question is, I believe it was in the last couple of years you've made recommendations on the need for better communication down to the campus level. And were you guys able to circle the loop? I know we've got a whole new team now on communication. We're hitting on a lot of different fronts with kind of a multi-channel approach to our communications. So have we improved? Do you know, were you able to get any feedback? Have we able to close the loop and engage those local PTAs at the campus levels and other organizations and leaders on campus to kind of better communicate and spread the word about what's going on at their particular campus?
I think that we observed that great progress had been made, not only in how the district was presenting its information through its website, but also how it was leveraging in many instances, just by talking to, when we're at a site visit, to campus leaders, their understanding of what the bond was supposed to do for their particular school. And I believe that things are improving, but I also think that there are always opportunities to improve. And I think that we have recommended a few, new thoughts in terms of using social media to push information out that may help enhance those, already progressing strides. So I think we're getting better at it. I certainly was at opportunities within my own PTA, readily willing and able to provide information to those folks on any particular questions or progress. And I think several members of our board were commonly asked by fellow, citizens and community members, hey, what's going on? What about this or that? And had access to those answers, either through the staff, Cindy and Kelly Horn were always available to answer emails, take phone calls if we had questions, concerns, but also a lot of that was being presented on the website. So we're able to, I think, do that, and I think there's always room for continued improvement.
Okay, good. Hey, my next question, I think you answered in your presentation. I think it was prescient tonight that we were able to have dinner with the Outgoing SLAB members, and I'm glad to report they all said great things about your committee. And I noticed quite a difference. I know we've struggled in the past with engagement with our student leaders, and they're busy, and it's understandable, but whatever we did, I'm with you, whatever we did, we need to keep going because they were engaged. They all spoke favorably about their time on the committee. So I do want to give you that feedback. And so since that really wasn't a question, I'm going to throw in my bonus fourth question. So kind of overall, this kind of is parallel to what Dr. Reich had asked you. We know that this was a big bond package, bigger than we've ever done before. There was a little bit of hiccups in the beginning as we struggled to scale up to the scale of this bond. But our next bonds might even be even bigger. And it seems to me, and apologies to my attorney colleague, I might be leading the witness. It seems to me that over the course of these 5 years, we've done a much better job. We've adjusted. The one thing I like about this district, and I made this comment yesterday with staff, is we're good at failing fast so we can succeed faster. And we knew we had some mistakes and we had some issues with some contractors. We knew we were kind of struggling early on with the size and scope of this bond, but all of those concerns have been allayed lately. It seems like we're doing a much better job and able to handle the size and scope of these remaining packages pretty well. Is that your assessment?
I think that the district and its staff, under your leadership, Dr. Cavazos, has done a great job setting in the systems that, to me, have demonstrated that we can very effectively, as a community, as a school district, manage this level or greater. I think that there's always a learning process, and those systems that were in place just got better. Where there was a gap or an opportunity, new systems were put into place. I think that the way that the district continues to look at itself and ask what could we be doing different, what could we be doing better, even this committee as an example is the way you continue to ask yourself, how can I evolve, how can I get better at it? And I think that based on everything we've seen, there's no question in my mind that we will do a fantastic job administering any future potential opportunities if they come this way. I think that there was some learning, but I think the systems that they had in place, rapidly identified what was going on. Courses of action were rapidly developed to meet those challenges, and they were executed and implemented. And that is just a fine operation. I mean, literally looking past, these past several years, the fact that we're doing everything that we said we were going to do in the bond program, and we're landing within 1% of $663 million, and that, we're all still here living and breathing,
Yes.
it's fantastic. I think it speaks very well to your staff.
That's excellent news. Thank you, Mr. DeKine, for your service, and hopefully you'll stick around for another term.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Thank you so much, Mr. DeKine. Really appreciate you stepping up to chair this committee. I know I agree with my colleagues that you've done a great job in organizing and keeping communication with our staff, and we really do appreciate that with all of the other things that you have to do as well. One thing I would like to say, great answer to the question, but if anyone has any questions about the bond, all they need to do is go look at those expected outcomes. Because I think sometimes we get a little bogged down with all the work and all the logistics, but to stop and look at that page and see everything that has been accomplished from that bond that we expected, and we've received those outcomes and the proof of it from our students and their success. So I just want to say thank you very much for leading this committee. I don't see any other lights. Now I see a light.
Certainly.
And thank you, President Mays. And it just popped in. And Mr. DeKine and maybe Ms. Mays and Dr. Cavazos, will this presentation be posted on our bond website? Because I could have looked it up real fast, but I thought I'd just ask the question instead, because it is a good outcomes-based presentation.
Yes, it will be.
Perfect. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. Thank you once again, Mr. DeKine. Thank you to the members that are here. Really appreciate the time that y'all have spent as well in serving our community and our district. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They sure did. Thank you. Y'all didn't even realize that. You got the air going. Thank you. Okay, so now we've come to our open forum of agenda items. Lisa, I do not see any cards. Is that correct? Okay. So then we will move on to our action items. Our first action item is considering TASB Board Policy Update 112. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And we have brought the board policy update before for discussion, and this has been something that the committee, the governance committee, has been working on. And so at this point, we're ready for action on this policy update. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Hogg.
You got to work, Ms. Mays, as president. It's a lot. You gotta manage buttons all the time. Thank you to Dr. Vassos, and as this board was addressed, and when I got caught in DC last week, I know y'all addressed it 2 weeks ago for our board meeting. This is TASB Update 112 that we went through as a board committee. All the information was sent to you. I don't want to say basic updates, because right when I say that, there's something critical in there, but pretty standard updates, a lot of legal, some locals that we addressed. And made fit to our board. So at this time, I move for approval of TASB Board Policy Update 112 as recommended by the district.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Hogg, a second by Ms. Walton. Please vote.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Dr. Reich?
Thank you, President Mays. So, in full support of the changes, and I did see just a very minor thing in numbering on BGA local, just I think kind of a typo, just in the organization. At the top, there's duties for the superintendent shall, and then there's three things: provide educational leadership, demonstrate district management, maintain positive board and community relations. But then each of those subcategories is renumbered as number 1 instead of 1, 2, and 3. That's all. So we just need to make that quick little edit. Nothing substantive whatsoever. Just wanted to put that out there. That's all.
I'd be willing to accept that to my motion if Ms. Walton would be willing to accept the second.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so once again, we've got a motion from Mr. Hogg, a second by Ms. Walton. After the discussions of corrections, any other discussion? Please vote. All in favor? Action item passes. Next action item, consider recommendation to propose non-renewal of term contract of Mary Hernandez. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays. And at this time, we'd like for the board to consider the recommendation to propose non-renewal of term contract of Mary Hernandez.
President Mays, I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation and to propose non-renewal of the term contract of Mary Hernandez. I move that the record of this action reflect the following. Before voting on this motion, the board considered a draft of the letter to the employee providing notice of the proposed non-renewal. The superintendent reviewed with the board the reasons for making his recommendation regarding the employee, and that the board has considered those reasons and finds that they provide sufficient justification for proposing non-renewal. By passage of this motion, the board further directs the superintendent to prepare for the board president's signature a final notice of proposed non-renewal for the employee and ensure that the notice is delivered to the employee not later than the 10th day before the last day of instruction in the current school year. The board further directs that the notice of proposed non-renewal include the time limitations and procedure for requesting a hearing before the board. The board agrees, if a hearing is timely requested, to engage an attorney to assist the board in conducting the hearing on the proposed non-renewal, including any pre-hearing matters necessary to ensure a fair, efficient, and expeditious hearing. The board further directs the board president to notify the law firm Eichelbaum, Wardell, Hansen, Powell, and Mel PC of this action and request that office to assign an attorney on behalf of the district to assist the board in conducting the hearing if the employee requests a hearing. The board also authorizes Eichelbaum, Wardell, Hansen, Powell, and Mel PC to consult with the superintendent to approve the final notice of proposed non-renewal and to take whatever actions are necessary and proper to present the case in support of the proposed non-renewal. And finally, the board directs that a copy of this motion be attached to the minutes of this meeting and the final notice of proposed non-renewal sent to the employee.
By Mr. Chapa, a second by Mr. Hogg. Are there any discussions? Please vote. Okay, all in favor? Action item passes. Next on our agenda is our discussion action item. Consider 2019-2020 Student Code of Conduct. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays. And we have been working with our Governance Committee and our Student Code of Conduct Committee on revisions for our Code of Conduct for the 1920 school year. And at this time, I'll hand it over to the Governance Committee for their summary of the action thus far.
Thank you, Dr. Guasos. Board members, this was sent out to the entire board this afternoon with many updates. As you'll see in the updates, and you'll see many of the updates, I want to say, and I have to thank Mr. Chapa for all the work and diligence he put into this. We all said for a long time it helped to have another lawyer on the board, and you're paying off, Mr. Chapa. Thank you so much. This and many other things. You're luckily we get you to work for free, which is even better. That, but I have to commend you. You did a very good job, and it's really helpful for the rest of the governance committee and this whole board of how you wrote up this. For years, we worked on this code of conduct, and I will say this code of conduct with some of the revisions makes it easily readable, easily understandable for parents, with items to be found on there, and very succinct, is what I would think, and to describe this as. With that, we are not going to make a motion for this. We will ask this group to review this over the next 2 weeks. We would like to bring this back to the next board meeting. Mr. Hill is taking this back to his staff again, his committee. Thank you, Ms. Walton. His committee for final review. Make sure all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and make sure it meets all standards. Because the code of conduct is something that our principals and our teachers and our staff use every single day. Unfortunately, most people don't read it till there's something wrong. I think sometimes, meaning the standard, and I always say the code of conduct, and over all our years of using this, the code of conduct is a base standard for us to follow. And it's, I don't want to describe it because I feel like it's disciplinarian to talk about police officers and using the law, but it is. It's to be used when it's needed. It's used as a basis and when something has gone too far, because I think we have to empower our teachers and our principals to make those decisions. And I think Mr. Chapa really helped us get those verbiage and that word across that that's what we're trying to do with this code of conduct to meet some of those standards. You'll see most of the changes starting on page 60 on the dress student code of conduct portion. We know it's just sent out, so we don't expect a lot of discussion, but we're open. Any discussion, you can email. You can also, we'll have more discussion when we vote on it in 2 weeks if you want final say. But if there are any questions tonight, we're more than willing to answer anything if you had a chance to read this today.
Okay, I don't see any lights. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogg. If we notice on here, our two supposed action items came from our governance committee, so I just want to say thank you for our chair of the governance committee, Bowie Hogg, Polly Walton, Justin Chapa. Thank y'all very much for the work that y'all do on this governance committee. We really appreciate it. In the middle of legislation, you are correct. Any more praise y'all want? Thank y'all, honestly. So next on the agenda are our items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda. Are there any items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda tonight? Okay, so tonight we will be considering the items listed on your agenda under consent items. Ms. Powell? No bids? Okay, so there's no bids. That was easy.
Move to approve.
I second.
Okay, motion made by Dr. Reich, seconded by Mr. Wilbanks. Is there any discussion? Please vote. All in favor? Pass. Okay. So now we will move on to our discussion items. First thing on our list is 2019-2020 Board of Trustees meeting calendar. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays. And the board has been provided a draft calendar for the 1920 school year for the board meetings and the trustee meetings. And so this is a discussion, and I want to, ahead of time, thank Lisa Benjamin, Administrative Assistant, for her work in diligently putting together the calendar, making sure we have the conflicts taken care of and things like that. But it is for discussion. Next time, we'll bring it for action. So if anybody has any input, we'd be happy to take that at this time. If not, we'll continue.
Okay, I don't see any lights. Okay, we look forward to having that discussion in the future, Dr. Cavazos. Next is our legislative update.
Thank you, President Mays. And this evening, we'd like to continue our, let's call it a series of activities and presentations that we've done the whole semester on legislative updates. And Ms. Powell has been keeping track of what's going on with our state legislature and the time that is quickly coming to a decision in terms of school finance. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Powell, give us an update on the legislative session.
Thank you very much. President Mays, board members, Dr. Cavazos, series is kind of that's a nice term, so we'll stop there. All right, we do want to update everybody. Honestly, there's not a whole lot that has changed in the last 2 weeks since we last had this discussion. So there are 10 days left in the session. They will adjourn on May 27th, and we will be very grateful for that. Couple of dates, a couple of dates of note. This calendar highlights the remaining days in white, and I put red boxes around the next 2 most critical dates. Actually, this Saturday is the last day that House committees can vote Senate bills out. And so if a bill has passed the Senate and now has come over to the House side of the legislature, if it's been assigned to a committee, it has to have a hearing and be voted out by Saturday in order to have a chance to make it all the way to the end. So that's a very critical date for a lot of bills. If there are Senate bills that have not made it out of a House committee by Saturday evening, then those bills will essentially be dead unless somebody tacks the provisions of a bill onto another bill that is still moving. The next date of significance is Tuesday, the 21st, and that's the last day that the House can vote on second reading on Senate bills and Senate joint resolutions on their daily or supplemental calendar. So those are 2 critical dates coming up just in the next few dates. Next Saturday by midnight is the deadline by which conference committee reports have to be distributed to House members. The House has a very detailed calendar in every session. The Senate does not have deadlines like the House does. So the whole thing kind of revolves around the House rules in terms of the calendar. So as you watch for deadlines and critical points, you usually are only talking about on House dates, because they are the only one of the 2 chambers that actually have those kinds of dates. And then the session adjourns on Memorial Day, the 27th. So we all are well aware that the district has a legislative agenda. There are 5 priority areas in that agenda. The first one on that list is academic accountability. And so, as we discussed last time, Chris Turner has filed 2 very similar bills, really on the behalf of Arlington ISD, and certainly these are bills that will benefit all school districts in Texas. They both have been moving quite well through the entire process. House Bill 3007 would require TEA to release to school districts data that they receive from sources outside of TEA that will be used in the accountability process. House Bill 3011 is similar, except it requires the Higher Ed Coordinating Board to release that data to school districts if they receive data from outside entities and are then going to pass it on to TEA for use in the accountability system. So both of those bills have passed the House and have moved to the Senate. House Bill 3007 is the one that seems to be moving forward, and that's the one that we would prefer to move forward of the 2. It has been heard by the Senate Ed Committee and has been voted out favorably out of Senate Ed, and it has been placed on the Senate intent calendar. So that's like a board agenda, their version of a board agenda, except that just because it's on an intent calendar doesn't necessarily mean that it will ever make it to the Senate floor for debate. There's rules on the Senate side that require that a bill have 3/5 approval just to come to the floor for a debate. And so, again, we have 10 days left, and so that's one we're watching. But so far, there has been no opposition really to either of these bills on either side. So we're optimistic that that one will move forward. The House Bill 3011, which is the one geared really more toward the higher ed coordinating board, is still pending in committee. And I don't anticipate that it would move forward at this point. Another area in our legislative agenda is school safety and mental health. The primary mental health and school safety bill that has emerged from the session is Senate Bill 11, filed by Chairman Taylor, and it passed the Senate and has moved over to the House and has been heard by House Public Ed and voted out of House Public Ed. And so this is awaiting now a potential debate on the House floor. This bill does not appropriate any money. It instead says if funds are appropriated for school safety and mental health efforts, then this is how those funds are to be allocated and used. And a lot of this is around various types of training. And actually also requires changes to emergency operations procedures and instruction in digital citizenship. And so these are things that will be implemented only if funds are appropriated for this. And the Legislative Budget Board has used an estimate of a $50 per student allotment just to gauge the potential financial impact of this bill. If we were to receive $50 per student in average daily attendance for this purpose, we would receive approximately $2.7 million. And again, we would be required to spend the funds as prescribed in this bill. So as we've been told, as things have progressed throughout the session, a lot of the financial resources have really been consumed by the school finance and the property tax relief and the teacher raise provisions. And so there has not been as much money earmarked for school safety as I think some people originally anticipated before the session started. So back to the school finance, that is another one of our 5 areas of focus in our legislative agenda. As we've talked about throughout the session, the House and the Senate each would have their own version of the school finance plan. And as I reported last week, both chambers have separate versions of school finance reform, and they yield very different results for us. The House version that has passed the House it would generate an estimated $32 million for Arlington ISD. The Senate version that has passed the Senate now would actually only yield $644,000 for Arlington ISD. The primary reason for the difference is that the Senate version dedicates more of the available funds to property tax relief and to mandated raises in the amount of $5,000 per person for all teachers and librarians. The House version does have provisions for a raise in it. It is not prescriptive in terms of an amount, or it's not as it doesn't dedicate as much of the overall resource towards raises. The House version would require that we use 25% of the gain in the basic allotment to give raises to all non-administrator positions. And there's still a lot of uncertainty as to how that calculation even would take place. So they both have provisions for raises. It's just that the Senate version is much more prescriptive and expensive. And so those two things, the property tax relief and the teacher raise, consume most of the dollars in the Senate plan. So both of those bills have passed their respective committees, and they're different. And so these two versions now are sitting in a conference committee. And you see on the screen here the conferees who have been appointed by their respective chambers to negotiate an agreement on school finance. And as I mentioned last week, conference committees cannot come up with something new, basically. Their task, their job is to negotiate the differences between two bills. They can only introduce something new with specific approval by both chambers to do that. So they are working now and have been working for about a week, I guess. And the word we hear is that they are making progress, actually, and may have an agreement by middle of next week. I've heard that early in this week, and then even today saw something that seemed to indicate that they were still miles apart. So, and I suspect that that is actually something that changes hour by hour. So anyway, they are working on this. So the main things that are different between these two bills, I've tried to capture those on the next several slides. They both increase the basic allotment, which was the core element of the funding formulas, but by different amounts. Tax rate compression is one of the big differences. Tax relief has been a priority of the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker from the start of the session. And so these two bills each take a stab at lowering property tax rates, but by different amounts and in different ways. The House version would require districts to lower their rate essentially by 4 cents. The way it's worded is we'd have to lower our rate by 96% of our Tier 1 rate, which is $1. So 4-cent reduction there. On the Senate side, it's a much more complicated application. The way it reads is that school districts are required to lower their tax rate by an amount that yields the least of the two calculations, the least result from the two calculations. One of those calculations is basically a 10-cent reduction in our tax rate. It's either that or what they call an individualized compression rate, which is a real complex formula that looks at property value growth. And if your property values have grown by more than the rate of inflation, then there's a sliding scale there that determines the amount of tax compression you have to have. Based on inflation right now, the word that we're hearing is that that would generally yield about a 2.5% cap on value. So we would either have to lower our rate by perhaps 10 cents or by an even greater amount if our property values way outpace the rate of inflation. So the other big piece for the Senate bill, the other big difference between the Senate and the House bill, is that the Senate plan would use current year values in the state funding formulas. So that's another big piece of this. It's a little separate from this piece about actually compressing your tax rate. But it is a very significant difference between the two bills. Today, the funding formulas use last year's property values to determine our offset, if you will, what's called local share. That's the amount of the total funding that we're expected to come up with locally. Since property values generally go up from one year to the next, then we benefit by using last year's values, because usually current year values are higher than last year. And so again, the higher your values are, the less state aid you get. So most urban districts, larger districts, fast-growing districts all prefer to use last year's property values. Again, the Senate version would have us use current year values. So especially in that year that we make a jump, the impact to school districts is very, very dramatic. And so it would actually generate a savings to the state even to do that. So moving to current year values would actually save the state $1.8 billion. That's just that much money that they wouldn't have to put into the funding formulas. That's really where they're getting the money to do the extra tax relief that is in their bill compared to the House version of the bill. So it's all kind of twisted up in there and rather complicated, but That's how they pay for tax relief. So essentially, as I've said it, and they are taking money from children, from school children, to use to give tax relief. They're taking money we already have and using it to buy down the tax rate. So that's something that the urban districts, the large districts, the fast growth districts have been very concerned about from the start, and we continue to be. So funding for tax relief. This is another area where there's a difference between the two bills. There's really nothing in the House version that takes any kind of an action to set up future tax rate reduction. The Senate version of school finance creates a new fund called the Tax Reduction and Excellence in Education Fund to accumulate money so that they can further reduce the tax rate down the road. And so the money for that fund would come from three places: from the severance tax, which is oil and gas tax, sales tax from online sales, and distributions from the available school fund above a certain threshold, $300 million. That money would all be dedicated into a fund that would be used then and down the road to further buy down tax rates. So that's the whole tax rate side and tax compression and then future tax rate relief is really, I think, probably the biggest difference between the two versions of the bill. And in terms of the formulas themselves, we all kind of laugh. We talk about the different pennies in the tax rate and how they're equalized in the funding formulas. There are some differences between those, and they'll work that out. The changes that they make in how we all compress our tax rates will dictate potentially a new maximum tax rate for school districts. On the House side, it's still $1.17 is the max rate. On the Senate side, again, with the changes that they've made in tax compression and how they go about calculating that, then your maximum tax rate is going to vary district to district, and it's going to be based on whatever they calculate is a maximum compressed rate that's actually a formulaic expression for them, plus 17 cents. And so that amount will look different from district to district across the state. Pay raises, we've already talked about. Again, the two plans are different. The Senate version of school finance mandates a $5,000 raise for every teacher and every librarian. That costs basically $4 billion across the state. And so that consumes a lot of the money that is new money that's being allocated for public education. And on the House side, the bill requires that we take 25% of the gain in the basic allotment and use that to give raises. And so that's another key difference that they have to work out. And then finally, outcomes-based funding. This was something we heard a lot about last year when the School Finance Commission was meeting. There was a lot of interest around tying district funding to performance on a couple of benchmarks in state assessments, one being third grade reading and the other being college, career, military readiness, CCMR. And so at the end of the day, the House did not include any funding around these outcome measures, and the Senate did. The Senate has included some of those. So that's another big item that they will have to work through. Early this week, the comptroller released a revised revenue estimate. For the next biennium, he increased his original estimate by $500 million. That's important because the legislature has to work within that revenue estimate for any legislation that they pass in adopting the budget. So they have found a little bit more money to help with revenue, and hopefully that helps with the school finance bill. So with that, we are anxiously waiting, and time is drawing very short, and so we will certainly continue to communicate with our legislators over the next week on matters, especially around the school finance bill. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mrs. Powell. Mr. Hogg?
Thank you, President Mays, and I just have to thank my governance committee Mr. Chapa and Ms. Walton. As you've seen, we've had a lot of other things going on. And then we also have a legislative session, but we wouldn't be able to do all this without Ms. Powell. So I have to start this off and thank Ms. Powell. I sometimes think, oh man, there's 10 days left. Thank goodness. I think Ms. Powell must think, oh my goodness, there's only 10 days left. Like, on the same note, it's crunch time in the last 10 days. There's a lot pending. I'm reading through bills, and I know they have till Saturday, some of those, and you can see the vast majority. And what you see in the difference in the House and Senate, and we know they're going to probably reach somewhere in the middle, meet some items together. The Senate almost, in some elements, creates an unfunded mandate for us. It creates, this district is historically, we've got to make sure all of staff works for this district and where it is. And so I think they're both great. They both provide large raises to our teachers, and it's something critical for us. But it is, you see the vast difference of what happens on this, and there will be vast differences from what comes about with this. In the past week, we had a state rep use us on a bill that wasn't necessarily what we exactly asked for, and our name was put on the House floor a little much. It's been a little chaotic. We have meetings every Friday with our legislative consultants to talk with and go through every piece. And we also, just so this board knows, and Ms. Powell would be interested, I've lost count how many letters we send. And we directly send letters, and they are directly hand-delivered to House and Senate members on bills we are opposing. And I can tell you, with my name and number on multiple of those, we've gotten multiple calls constantly from the House and Senate research committees who start asking opinions on bills and where we stand. So that means legislators are asking for different details on that. So sometimes we wonder, are these letters we're sending making a difference? I've received phone calls from, I guess a constituent that says, I can't believe you guys are opposing this. Why are you opposing this? And then I've received notes from, I'm glad you're supporting this. And so they work. As much as sometimes it's a tedious process and we feel like they don't work, they work. Ms. Powell, is it safe to say we're at 100?
No, actually, I counted yesterday. It seems like 100. It's
1,000.
It feels like that. It's closer to 55, and that's fewer than in previous years. But we tried to be more targeted and on our efforts this year, and so yeah, it's about 55.
And I encourage. I just sent a letter last night to all of our House and Senate members. TASB has a very good app program. They sent it out to me in a link, and I just clicked it. You're able to add your own verbiage in there to be able to send it out directly to the legislators that are on the conference committee for HB3. It's a critical bill. It's probably the most critical item we could have that's going through. So I will definitely send that link out to my colleagues, and would encourage you all to take your time if you can, write a letter, because they will be doing lots of work on this tomorrow. They will be doing lots of work on this over the weekend to get this pushed through. I think that is their game plan to get this done. They want to know where they're going to go, hopefully sometime next week. Ms. Powell, let me ask, Comptroller Hager came out and said there's $500 million additional change in that. Do we think that's all going to go to tax rate compression? Where do we think that $500 million is going to be truly allocated? Are we talking about that on our governance call?
Yeah, and we can talk about that tomorrow. I actually can't say if there's a particular place where they'll try to focus those dollars, or if it just goes into general revenue that's used for the overall budget. My guess is that a lot of that is going to be dedicated to property tax relief.
And I'll say, if HB3 went through the way it was written from the House side, and that $500 million goes into property tax compression, I'd say that's a good thing for the state of Texas, because there is a lot of property tax relief. I feel it. I think everyone else feels it. Speaking with some state reps, those are some interesting points, and I know that's where some of them are pushing that to go, which that kind of plays into what also happens with HB3, how all those things go together. I always say it's tough to consider bills individually. You need to consider school finance, especially school finance reform as a whole. What's happening as a whole altogether. So I just wanted to let the board know and thank Ms. Powell and thank all the staff for all the hard work. I know Penny in your office does a ton on this also to help keep us afloat, and all the calculating of numbers and those pieces. And Dr. Grassos, I know we pull you in and you've had to go down and meet with our lieutenant governor multiple times. And I think, I think back to years ago and the presence now we have in the state as an active enrollment, it's night and day. I just commend this whole staff and I thank all my colleagues for all the hard work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. Ms. Walton?
Thank you, President Mays. I have one thing I'm kind of curious about. I'm pulling for House Bill 3, I think, for obvious reasons. Right, the House, the original HB 3, yes. What I don't understand about the Senate bill exactly is that if $5,000 salary increases are given to teachers and librarians, that money is secured for the biennium in this package, right? What happens after those 2 years?
So that's been a point of discussion. They have put that money into the formulas. So it would require an action by a future legislature to undo the formula.
Oh, undo.
So the intent is that it's there, and certainly that could change any session. So.
Yeah, we've seen that happen. You and I have been around long enough to have seen that happen on a few other items.
We have, and the other thing I would say, all along there's been a question about how they sustain, especially the property tax relief long term. They've got to have a revenue source to continue to pay for that long term. And when you look at economic cycles and you worry that, if we have a downturn, then we're going to find ourselves in a situation like we did in 2011, where in that session, they cut $5 billion from public ed. So that is an ongoing concern.
And I just, the other problem I'm struggling with is I just can't see Oh. Electrical failure. My mind just shorted out too. Where the Senate bill capping the tax rates and requiring districts to use current values, I just can't see how that's going to help any district.
It doesn't help the larger urban districts. Small districts, more rural districts, their values don't grow as much from year to year as an urban district. And so moving to a current year value will not have as big an effect for them. And one of the things I didn't mention a minute ago, and I would like to go ahead and point out that was pointed out to me and Mr. Drollinger in a phone conversation with one of our consultants just yesterday. There seemed to be what he called some real defects in the language on the Senate side about how they would even go about certifying your values that are used in the formula for our local share. Because by moving to current year values, they would that would require the comptroller's office to certify those values. The comptroller's office certifies property values a year after we get the values from Tarrant Appraisal District. So like today, we don't yet have the certified property values from 2018 from the comptroller's office. Those are the values that they give to TEA and TEA uses in the funding formula. So a move to current year values, there's not even a structure in place today for the comptroller's office to come along and between May 27th and the time that school districts have to adopt their tax rate for next year, to even have that structure in place for the comptroller's office to make that certification. And so there's some real problems just with the logistics of it.
That is just fraught with ways to fall in a hole, to put it, I thought of another expression, but I'll use that one. Anyway, thank you so much, Ms. Powell and your staff, Mr. Drollinger and everyone who works on this so hard. And I've seen some of your letters and the times on the day, on the time on when the email came to me, and it'll be nice when we can all get some rest after this is over. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walton. Dr. Reich?
Thank you, President Mays. Thank you, Ms. Powell, for sticking with it. As we have said for many months now, that it's all about that revenue for the state. Where's it going to come from? And that's what they're going to obviously duke it out behind closed doors right now. So, not to belabor any more about that, we'll see what our fate will have. I was curious on SB 29. You know which one I'm talking about.
I do.
So, is there, from our consultants or other ears that you have out there, is there a feeling at this point of where, if it's going somewhere or not?
Yes, they're early this week. I was told that bill was likely dead.
Good.
I think it has reared its head again, and still has some life. But I think the feeling is that that one will either be pulled down or stricken through a point of order or something. I don't think that one will come to a vote. That is a bill that would prohibit taxing entities from using tax dollars for purposes of legislative consulting, advocacy, or joining organizations such as TASB or TASA or the Texas School Alliance that try to advocate on behalf of the organization. And I think the thought is that, quite frankly, that legislators don't really want to vote on that. Nobody wants to vote on it, either side.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That I know that's caused
Hey,
a
and
great
Dr.
bit
Reich,
of
real quick,
angst. Yes.
that is actually on the House calendar
It
tomorrow,
is.
so they
Right.
will be addressing that. So if anyone, and this is a bill that truly, at first it started like, hey, you just can't hire lobbyists, you can't hire consultants, and now it's you can't do it if you're a trustee, and you can't advocate if you're a trustee. You can't advocate if you're a teacher. You can't do those things unless a legislator asks you for information. Then you can provide information to them. It is
Almost seems unconstitutional.
There's a lot to say about it. I would encourage everyone, if you want to send a quick letter, especially a text or anything, to any of our legislators, in case it does actually get to vote tomorrow, because there's a lot of public pressure on that one. It is just mind-blowing that is what they're spending their time focusing on as an approach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Mr. Chapa.
I was just going to pile on SB 29, but my colleagues have beat me to it, and no, very, very eloquently so. I would just say, as somebody who believes in local governance and that the government closest to the people is most in tune with them, and which is something that a lot of people in Austin say, but apparently some of them aren't walking the walk. Bills like SB 29 crop up every couple of sessions. There was another one in the House that didn't make it out of the House, but we see these. And it, in my opinion, in some ways is extremely offensive as a local official because we, and especially in this district, have gone to great lengths to come up with a legislative agenda, which is something that's a little bit unusual for districts to do in this state, so we can advocate for our students, so we can advocate for our teachers, and that agenda reflects the will of this community. But education is an extremely complicated subject matter. No one in the state really understands school finance except maybe Cindy and 2 other people. And
Two other people.
and that being so, and every person up here on the dais with me, except Dr. Convasos, who's it's his job, we are volunteers in this capacity. We can't go down and camp out in Austin, every 2 years for 6 months out of the year. So we need people to help us amplify our voice and people to help educate us and to educate legislators on these complicated issues. And so the phrase tonight that came up several times, legislative consultants. We have legislative consultants who help us with very complicated issues at a policy level in the area of school finance to represent the needs of people in the Arlington ISD. And bills like SB 29 effectively shut us up, because there are legislators in Austin who don't want to be educated on those things because they want to tell us what to do, regardless of the effect that might have on their own constituents, quite frankly. And so I hope that this trend of these types of bills being introduced in Austin eventually comes to a stop. The word hypocrite, I'm not afraid to use, because some of the people who are introducing these bills purportedly support local control. And I think that this trend is a bit dangerous. I hope SB 29 dies tomorrow or a quick death very soon. I question the constitutionality of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. I don't see any other lights. I think Chapa just put a stamp on that. Thank you, Mrs. Powell. Appreciate it. Good way to end. Now we come to our open forum for non-agenda items. The second open forum segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to address the trustees on any subject except personnel. This is not intended to be a discussion or a debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at an individual will not be tolerated. I have 2 cards from our audience. When your name is called, please step to the podium. You will have 5 minutes to speak. A lighted timer on the podium will assist you in pacing your presentation. A yellow light will illuminate when there is 1 minute left for you to complete your presentation. When the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, please end your presentation. The first card I have is Hector Carrillo. The topic is grievance procedure.
Members of the board and members of the public, I try to focus this thing just as a matter of policy. I'm not trying to deal with any particular issues in particular about any employees in particular. And I divided this thing in different points. And the first one is the fact that we have in the Arlington Independent School District, we do have a grievance procedure, but unfortunately, we do not have an arbitration procedure. I think this might have to do with the fact that we live in a right to work state. But the fact is that we do not have an arbitration procedure. Consequently, the grievance process is controlled by the administration at all times. 3, we have an administration giving discretion to employees to fire teachers, as an example, for no reason at all. Number 4, a school board has become an extension of administration serving only as a policy advisor and a de facto employee without compensation for the Arlington Independent School District. 5, the school board has become also a rubber stamping entity for administration when it comes to fire teachers. AISD is now involved in the practice of using some union officials as advisors to fire teachers. The grievance procedure is now abused to a point that everything remains the same even when employees win the grievances. Our organization, the League of United Latin American Citizens, will remain on top of these issues until the administration and the board reverse course and implement the necessary changes so the workers of the Arlington Independent School District and the community in general can enjoy an atmosphere of better working conditions and better environment to process their grievances. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I have Luis Castillo, subject due process.
Good evening, Board President Mays, esteemed board members and staff. First and foremost, congratulations on your new position, Ms. Mays. And I also like to congratulate the re-elected or elected board members, and thanks for a well-fought campaign. So having said that, my topic today is on due process, which kind of piggybacks on what Mr. Curry was saying. And I think the due process is best defined, and I'm talking about procedural due process. It's not my intent to educate the board on due process, on policy, because I'm sure that you're very well acquainted and educated in that matter. But for the sakes of the audience and the viewers, I think due process as it relates to the grievance procedure, I think can be best described with one word: fairness. And I think the district says that we provide a due process, a fair process. Well, let's look at the facts. The district writes the policy. The district implements the policy. The district enforces the policy. And the district interprets the policy. Now, how fair is that? I don't think so. I mean, I may not be a Harvard Law School graduate, but that's far from being fair. Everybody in the chain of the process are associated with the same entity, the school district. And the decisions, whether it's a teacher, an employee, or a parent who files a grievance, needs to be made by a neutral decision maker. Other than that, it's all a hoax. It's like your grievance procedure, your due process is sort of a totalitarian form of government here. It's oppressive, and the employees or parents, if they file a complaint, they're not getting a fair shake. And that creates tension in the community, and it's a source for keeping this issue on top, on the agenda here. Now, let me tell you one story that in recent years, I've been involved with some residents in East Arlington, and there was this parent who filed a complaint against the principal, and she asked for my assistance in terms of advising her through the process. And we met with the principal, and we tried to resolve the issue, and we couldn't reach an agreement. So the principal said, well, file agreements. And there's 2, 3, or 4 levels to the grievance. Level 1, okay, so she wrote the grievance, filed it, and then in so many days, she was notified that the hearing officer was going to be the first level on this date, on this time. So we showed up. And guess what? The hearing officer is the same principal that she was complaining about. Come on, give us a break. We're smarter than that. How can you complain about somebody and then that same person is going to decide the fate of her own, performance or career for that matter? And then so it was a loser there. And then we go to the next step, which is the boss of the first hearing officer, and that was a no-win. And then it goes to I believe the superintendent's office or district knee, and that's a no-win. So throughout the whole process, it's all fixed. There's no fairness in the process. And I think that it's incumbent upon us, living in a democracy, that we strive to afford employees and parents, or students for that matter, a fair process. I mean, I don't think that's asking for too much. The deck is totally stacked against the complainant. It's a no-win situation. It's no win. And I mean, just turn the table around. How would you like to go through a process that you go through that process where everybody involved in the process are all in the same entity? It's like, the district is the judge, the jury, and the executioner. That's not fair. And I think the district needs to relook at the policy and make it a fair process for employees, teachers, parents. And I think it will be a better world. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Okay, now we will move to our superintendent's report. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays, and I'd like to share some information about our district. First, the AISD night, and you can see maybe a picture there at the Rangers game was a big success with Lamar Madrigal singing both the Canadian and U.S. national anthem since the Rangers were facing the Toronto Blue Jays, and some of those people look familiar there on that picture there. The Bowie head football coach, Danny DeArmond, was honored by throwing out the first pitch, and many of our employees and families enjoyed a great evening of baseball here in Arlington with the Texas Rangers. So we would like to thank the Texas Rangers for their continued support and partnership with our school district. Next, we'd like to congratulate our 2019 Aware winners. And I think all of you attended the Aware banquet and you experienced the success of our teachers and the real stories of their dedication to our school district. So honored in the ceremony and dinner last week were Heather Bush from Little Elementary, Kimberly Sano from Larson Elementary, Emmanuel Ruiz from Butler, Jenny Leatherwood from Bailey Junior High, Jonathan Gaffney from Seguin High School. The Aware Foundation has been around for 30 years and has recognized teaching excellence in AISD. We sincerely appreciate, and we keep saying this about the Aware Foundation, but we sincerely appreciate their dedication to honoring our teachers. And so they look really happy and excited in that picture. Next year, they'll be delivering a speech, and I'm sure they'll be a little more nervous about that next year. Arlington ISD Dads Engaged for Excellence Initiative held its annual celebration dinner to recognize dads engaged for excellence and their essay contest winners last week. At this event, community partners and dad club leaders were honored for their support of father engagement in AISD. Over 50 campuses are engaged in intentional efforts to bring more fathers and father figures to their schools. So great job to, again, the Parent and Community Engagement Department and all our dads for their involvement and our principals for their support as well. That's one example from Corey. Next, Crow Elementary celebrated 60 years of school dedication and reception last week. Crow acknowledged its history and celebrated its future as it transitions to the Crow Leadership Academy next year. And what a great picture there of all of us who attended. So natural next to that sign. Just a fantastic job. I'm glad everybody was able to join the picture. Anyway, with that, fantastic job to Jamie McDougall and the staff at Crow Elementary. What a great picture. All right. Finally, this week, I was able to spend some time with two of our first ever STEM Academy graduates at Martin High School. So the STEM Academy is now at its first graduating class there at Martin High School. And Trinity Stallings and Samantha Maldonado are truly examples of excellence and rigorous coursework and innovative learning experiences taking place at the STEM Academy. Both will be headed to MIT this fall as freshmen. Congratulations to Trinity and Sam. We are so proud of you and your success, and all our STEM Academy graduates, and of course all our graduates that are coming up. These two students were treated to a media event organized by Anita and her team with the Communications and Marketing Department, and they shared their story, often, and their experiences at the STEM Academy and their anticipation of entering MIT. And so we're so proud of our students, all of our students, so proud of these two students and Martin High School. The other picture shows the staff, some of the staff members of the STEM Academy, and of course our principal, Marlene Roddy. So again, a public thank you to them and their dedication for making the STEM Academy a special program in our district. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Do we have any school board reports? Okay, I see no lights. I do see a light. A bright light, I might add. Dr. Reich?
I don't have a report per se. I just want to say that this is our last official convening before the end of school. And over the next 2 weeks, there's so many activities going on, including fun events as well as finals and the closeout of tests and that type of thing. So I just want to give a shout out to our community, our families, our students, our teachers. Just a few days to go. I know they have it down to the second probably, but just wanted to say congratulations on a great school year. And since we won't be convening before they are done.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Ms. Walton?
Well said, Dr. Reich. I just want to go back to the superintendent's report. Samantha Maldonado went to Swift Elementary when I was there and was on our library Battle of the Books team for 2 years. So not only has she got the math and all that, but she was a hard worker and just devoted student back then. And I'm so glad to see her, you know, just with so much access to such a wonderful future.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Walton. Mr. Chapa?
Thank you, President Mays. Since others chimed in, I wanted to share some information the board received this week, but also wanted to put out publicly. I saw it in a few other places. We talked about how the bond program and other goals that this board has had to increase choice in the district and how those things are coming to fruition. We learned this week that the second graduating class at the Collegiate Early College High School, 90 out of 98 students in that graduating class will earn their associate degrees concurrently with their high school diploma. And for reference, the state average is 40%. So over 90% of those students getting their associates. So some great things going there, and look forward to the second early college high school opening next school year. We also got some great news from the CTC that there was a company that interviewed 25 students from the CTC. These are high school students. All 25 got offers for employment with a starting pay of $50,000, complete with benefits. So we talk a lot about up here about transforming lives, and these are two tangible examples of how this district is making a real impact for our students.
Well said, Mr. Chapa. Thank you very much. I will say that I am housing my last student in AISD, my son, my youngest, and that is so exciting. But I have to say, he did not have to take finals because he took care of his business during the school year. And every day I get a call saying, "Mom, may I have some money?" So we're maybe re-looking at that.
I got 2 kids in Justin's got one he'll pass off, I'm sure. So
I've done my duty. That's really good. Lastly, very seriously, just for 1 minute, I would like to just say thank you very much to my colleagues in trusting in me, serving as president. I truly, humbly do appreciate that. I will work very diligently to make sure that we are well represented. And when this mic goes off at the end of our board meetings, we are just a team, and I appreciate my team. Thank you. Ms. Secretary, do we have any items to consider?
Madam President.
Do it again.
There it comes. Madam President, we do not have anything to report out.
Thank you, Ms. Walton. With that being said, it is 9:58, and this meeting is adjourned.